So we did do a survey, and with any survey, it's a point in time. I recognize that things can change through, things change over time, and people's opinions and emotions change, and what they're thinking at that point in time changes to now even. But when we did the most recent survey, the feedback from the families, that 71% of the families responded that their children learn better at school than at home. 20% equally as well. 5% aren't sure, and 4% learn better at home than at school. And that matches their beliefs about the child's learning. And then given what they know about COVID-19 pandemic, where would you prefer that your district focus, or that we focus on? 75% said making it safe for students and staff to return to school. 18% making digital learning the best it can be, and 7% did not have a preference. Next slide. And so when we looked at what would indicate what type of precautions would help and affect your willingness to send your child to school, there are some pretty clear ones, and I think we all know them. I don't know that we can get everybody. I don't know that everybody's practicing them out there. I think we can in the schools. I think we can, certainly when you look at the highest percentage areas, the school is thoroughly cleaned at least once a day. Students and staff regularly wash hands with soap and water. Hand sanitizer is provided. And staff have been adequately trained on CDC guidance to reduce the likelihood of COVID-19 transmission. So those are things that we certainly would be working on and working toward. Okay, next slide. When you look at the student responses, theirs are somewhat similar, a little bit more in the category of not having a preference. So 65% preferred to return to school, 17% don't have a preference, and 18% said focus on the digital learning. So I think there's one thing, and regardless of how, if we did this survey today, what this would look like, I think the reality is no matter what we come up with, and that's been the challenge, because when you look at trying to be a problem solver and get things set up, you know that you're not going to meet everybody's wishes and demands in this process. And I don't think it's always right just to focus on where the majority is, but I think you take everything into consideration and try to use that in the development of this plan. Next slide, Jamie. Staff input, same pie shape, a little bit lower percentages, about 65% returning to the building as a preference, 18% making digital learning the best it can be, and 17% not having a preference. So we're going to have some further communications about that with staff, and ultimately, and we'll get into more about that a little bit later, but sending another survey out for parents to share a preference of which option they would prefer for the fall. Similarly for the staff, their preference or their willingness to teach or work in the building is impacted by the same. School is thoroughly cleaned was 93%, 96% students and staff wash hands, 95% with the hand sanitizer. There's a couple other ones that I think were higher for the staff as well, that talking about ventilation, and I know Melissa is going to touch on that in a little bit. And then visitors and volunteers are limited on campus, which is something that we're taking into consideration in the development of this plan as well.